Most people think self-care means comfort, more sleep, less stress, avoiding discomfort. But the Stoics believed something very different. They believed real self-care is discipline, the kind that strengthens your mind so life can't break you. Because when you only care for your comfort, you become fragile, dependent on circumstances, controlled by mood. Stoic philosophy never taught self-love as indulgence. It taught self-respect through action. Today, we're going to walk through 7 Stoic self-care habits. Habits that don't make life easier, but make you stronger. These practices won't numb you. They won't distract you. They will train you to stand firm, calm under pressure, steady in chaos, and confident without validation. If you've been feeling drained, unfocused, or disconnected from yourself, this is not about fixing your life overnight. It's about rebuilding your inner foundation. Stay with me, and if you're ready to treat yourself with discipline, not excuses, comment this below. I respect myself. Habit 1. Live by virtue, not mood. If you want real self-care, the kind that builds confidence you can rely on, this is where everything begins. Most people live by mood. If they feel motivated, they act. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel offended, they react. If they feel anxious, they avoid. That is not freedom, that is dependence. Stoicism teaches a harder, calmer path. Live by virtue, not by mood. Virtue, in Stoic philosophy, is not moral perfection. It is consistency of character. The Stoics identified 4 pillars that guide every decision: wisdom, choosing what actually matters; justice, acting with fairness and integrity; courage, doing what's right even when it's uncomfortable; temperance, restraint, balance, self-control. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical filters. When you make decisions based on mood, your life becomes unstable. When you make decisions based on virtue, your life becomes aligned. Here's the modern problem. People confuse self-love with self-soothing. They ask, "What do I feel like doing?" instead of, "What kind of person am I becoming?" Stoic self-care flips that question. Before any decision, big or small, ask these 4 questions. Is this wise? Is this just? Does this require courage? Does this show self-control? You don't need to answer all 4 perfectly. You need to check your direction. Because virtue gives you something moods never will: self-respect. Self-respect doesn't come from feeling good. It comes from knowing you acted in alignment, even when it was hard. Think about real examples. You don't feel like exercising, but you do it anyway. Not for punishment, for discipline. You don't feel like having a difficult conversation, but you speak calmly and honestly. Not to win, to be just. You don't feel confident, but you act with courage anyway. Not because fear disappeared, because virtue mattered more. This is how Stoics practiced self-love. Not by asking, "How do I feel?" but by asking, "What would a grounded, self-respecting person do here?" Over time, something powerful happens. Your emotions start following your actions, instead of controlling them. Calm replaces chaos. Confidence replaces hesitation. Trust in yourself replaces constant self-doubt. And here's the key insight. When you live by virtue, you stop needing motivation. You don't negotiate with your feelings, you execute your values. That is what makes you unstoppable. Practical. Stoic practice. Tonight or tomorrow morning, do this. Write down 3 non-negotiables, not goals, standards. For example, I act with honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. I do not abandon my responsibilities because of mood. I choose restraint over impulse. Keep them short, clear, actionable. Then, for the next 24 hours, let those standards, not your feelings, guide you. You will still feel tired. You will still feel resistance. That's normal, but you will also feel something deeper: respect for yourself. And that is the foundation of all Stoic self-care. Not indulgence, not avoidance, but alignment. Because the Stoics understood this truth long ago, a person who lives by virtue cannot be easily shaken by circumstance. Closing line: virtue first, comfort later. Habit. 2. Master the dichotomy of control. If habit 1 builds your character, this habit protects your peace. Because most people are not exhausted from effort. They are exhausted from trying to control what was never theirs. Stoicism offers a brutally simple rule that changes everything. Some things are in your control. Some things are not. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your effort. These are yours. Other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, the future, random events. These are not. Yet most suffering comes from confusing the two. People lose sleep trying to manage how others see them. They replay conversations they can't change. They stress over results they don't fully control. This is not responsibility. It is misplaced effort. Stoic self-care begins the moment you withdraw energy from the uncontrollable and reinvest it where it actually matters. Here's why this habit is so powerful. When you focus on what you can't control, you feel anxious. When you focus on what you can control, you feel grounded, because control is clarity. Epictetus taught that freedom is not having everything you want. It's wanting only what depends on you. Think about modern life. You post something online and wait for reactions. You do your best at work and obsess over recognition. You're honest in a relationship and fear the response. The Stoic response is not indifference, it is precision. You care deeply, but only about the right things. Effort, not applause. Integrity, not approval. Preparation, not prediction. And this shift changes how you experience life. You stop taking things personally that were never about you. You stop blaming yourself for outcomes you couldn't guarantee. You stop burning energy on variables outside your reach. This is not lowering standards. It is raising intelligence. The Stoic practice. Here's a practice you can use in under 10 seconds. When stress appears, draw 2 mental columns. Column 1. In my control. Column 2. Not in my control. Then ask one question. Where am I placing my energy right now? If it's column 2, pause. Redirect. Not with frustration, with discipline. For example, you can't control whether someone respects you, but you can control your boundaries. You can't control whether a project succeeds, but you can control the quality of your effort. You can't control whether someone stays, but you can control your dignity. This habit doesn't make you passive. It makes you effective. Because once you stop fighting reality, you gain the strength to shape yourself. And here's the deeper insight. Loving yourself in the Stoic sense means refusing to torment yourself over what you cannot command. It means accepting limits without surrendering agency. Most people resist this because they confuse control with caring. Stoics knew better. They cared deeply, but they cared wisely. And over time, this habit produces something rare: calm confidence. You act fully. You accept outcomes cleanly. You move forward without resentment. That is what makes you unstoppable. Not because life goes your way, but because your peace no longer depends on it. Practical daily application. Tonight, write one sentence and keep it visible. I focus on effort. I release the rest. Then tomorrow, every time stress appears, ask yourself, is this in my control? If yes, act without delay. If no, let it go without guilt. That is Stoic self-care. Not escape, not denial, but intelligent alignment with reality. And when you master this habit, life doesn't feel lighter. You become stronger. Closing line. Do your best. Release the rest. Habit. 3. Create a pause before every reaction. If there is one habit that immediately increases your power, This is it. Most people lose control of their lives not because of what happens to them, but because of how quickly they react. They speak too fast, they defend too early, they explode, withdraw, or justify before they understand what's really happening. Stoicism offers a different approach. Between stimulus and response, there is a pause. And in that pause, your freedom lives. This is not about suppressing emotions. Stoics never taught emotional numbness. They taught delayed reaction. Because the moment you react impulsively, you hand control to the situation or to the other person. Anger decides for you. Fear speaks for you. Ego takes the wheel. And afterward, you often think, I shouldn't have said that. I should have stayed calm. I gave away my power. Stoic self-care begins when you stop living at the mercy of impulse. Here's the modern trap. People believe that reacting quickly means being honest, that expressing every emotion is being real. Stoicism disagrees. Honesty without control is not strength. It's leakage. The Stoic understands this. Not every feeling deserves a voice. Not every thought deserves action. Power comes from choice. That's why Stoics train themselves to create a pause, especially under pressure. Imagine real situations. Someone criticizes you unfairly. A message triggers irritation. A comment feels disrespectful. Your nervous system wants to react immediately. But the Stoic does something different. He pauses, not to be passive, but to regain authorship. The Stoic method, STOIC. This is a simple, powerful sequence you can use anywhere. S. Stop. Do nothing for a moment. Silence is already control. T. Take breaths. 3 slow breaths. This lowers emotional intensity. O. Observe. Name what's happening internally. I feel anger. I feel threatened. I feel embarrassed. Naming creates distance. I interpret wisely. Ask, is this truly about me? What assumption am I making? What would virtue look like here? C. Choose deliberately. Now act, not from emotion, but from character. This process may take 10 seconds, but it saves you years of regret. Here's what changes when you practice this habit consistently. You stop saying things you need to apologize for. You stop reacting to bait. You stop being dragged into unnecessary conflict. People feel you're calm and adjust, because calm is not weakness. It is dominance without aggression. Stoics understood something most people miss. The person who can delay reaction cannot be easily controlled. And this is where self-love becomes visible. Loving yourself means refusing to sabotage your future for the relief of a moment. It means protecting your reputation, your peace, and your direction. Every pause is an act of self-respect. Over time, your identity changes. You become someone who is steady, predictable in values, unpredictable in reaction. That combination creates authority. Practical daily practice. For the next 24 hours, commit to one rule: no immediate reactions to emotional triggers, no instant replies, no raised voice, no defensive explanations. Just pause. Ask one question before speaking or acting. Will this response make me stronger or weaker? If weaker, wait. This habit alone can transform relationships, work, and self-image. Because once you control your reactions, life stops controlling you. And that is Stoic self-care at its core. Not comfort, not expression, but mastery. Closing line. I pause, I choose, I remain in control. Habit 4. Practice negative visualization. At first glance, this habit sounds strange. Why would self-care involve imagining things going wrong? Because Stoics understood something modern culture avoids. What is prepared does not panic. Negative visualization is not pessimism, it is mental training. Stoics practiced it daily, not to become fearful, but to become steady when life didn't cooperate. Here's the problem most people face. They move through life assuming stability. They expect things to continue as they are. And when disruption comes, a loss, a delay, a rejection, a setback, they collapse emotionally, not because the event was unbearable, but because they were unprepared. Stoic self-care addresses this directly. Premeditatio malorum means briefly imagining, what if this doesn't go as planned? What if I lose this? What if today is harder than expected? Not for hours, not obsessively. Just long enough to remove shock from the equation, because shock is what breaks people, not difficulty. Think about real situations. A job interview doesn't work out. A relationship changes. A plan fails unexpectedly. Most people panic because they believed deep down that things had to go their way. Stoics trained themselves differently. They reminded themselves, this was always possible. And if it happens, I will respond with reason. This habit produces two powerful effects. First, gratitude. When you briefly imagine losing something, you stop taking it for granted. Health, time, relationships, opportunities. You become present, not anxious. Second, resilience. When difficulty arrives, it feels familiar, not welcome, but known. And familiarity reduces fear. Stoics didn't fear hardship. They feared being unprepared for it. That distinction matters. Here's where people misunderstand this habit. They think imagining loss will make them negative. In reality, it makes you calmly realistic. You stop clinging. You stop demanding guarantees from life. And when expectations loosen, peace increases. The Stoic practice. This practice takes 2 minutes, preferably in the morning. Choose one area of your life, work, health, relationships. Ask one simple question. If this went wrong today, how would a grounded, disciplined person respond? Then imagine yourself responding with composure, not collapsing, not raging, not spiraling, just responding with clarity and effort. That's it. You're not predicting the future, you're rehearsing character, and that rehearsal pays off. When stress appears, your mind says, I've been here before. And instead of panic, you feel readiness. This is why Stoics combined negative visualization with gratitude. They didn't dwell on loss. They used it to appreciate what was present, without attachment. Self-love, in the Stoic sense, means preparing yourself for reality, not hiding from it. It means strengthening your inner posture so that no matter what happens, you remain intact. This habit doesn't make you cold. It makes you unshakable. Because once you accept that loss is possible, you stop being afraid of living fully. You act boldly, you love deeply, you work diligently. Not because outcomes are guaranteed, but because your character is ready. That is Stoic self-care. Not comfort through illusion, but confidence through preparation. Closing line. What is prepared does not panic. Habit 5. Journal with radical honesty. Most people journal to feel better. Stoics journaled to be better. That difference matters. Radical honesty is one of the most powerful forms of self-care because it removes self-deception, and self-deception is where weakness hides. Stoic journaling was never about positive affirmations. It was about self-examination. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to praise himself. He wrote to correct himself, because improvement begins the moment excuses end. Here's the modern problem. People lie to themselves gently. They soften their failures. They blame circumstances. They justify patterns they know are harming them. And over time, that gentleness becomes stagnation. Stoic self-care takes a harder but cleaner approach. It asks, what did I do wrong today? Where did I act beneath my values? What am I avoiding? Not to shame yourself, but to reclaim agency. because you cannot fix what you refuse to name. Radical honesty creates clarity, and clarity creates self-respect. Think about how powerful this is. Most people outsource feedback to others, managers, partners, friends. Stoics went inward. They became their own examiner. Not cruel, not forgiving, just accurate. This habit changes your relationship with yourself. You stop being a victim of your patterns and start becoming their architect. And here's the paradox. The more honest you are, the less emotional weight you carry. Because there's relief in truth. No pretending, no rationalizing, no internal arguments. Just facts. The Stoic Journal Framework. This practice takes 5 to 10 minutes, ideally at night. Answer these 6 questions, briefly, honestly. 1. What did I do well today? Reinforce alignment. 2. Where did I act against my values? Name it plainly. 3. What emotion dominated my actions? Anger, fear, ego, avoidance. 4. What story did I tell myself to justify it? This exposes excuses. 5. What would a more disciplined response look like next time? Design improvement. 6. What is one thing I'm grateful for, despite difficulty? This prevents bitterness. That's it. No poetry, no overthinking, just precision. This habit builds something rare, internal accountability. You stop waiting for life to correct you. You do it yourself, daily, and over time, patterns emerge. You notice the same triggers, the same avoidance, the same weak spots, and once seen clearly, they lose power. This is why Stoics believed journaling was essential. Not because life is confusing, but because the mind avoids responsibility when unobserved. Self-love, in the Stoic sense, means watching yourself closely, not to judge, but to guide. This habit doesn't make you harsh, it makes you honest and free. Because when you stop lying to yourself, you stop sabotaging yourself, and when you correct yourself daily, you don't need dramatic change. You improve quietly, consistently, relentlessly. That is what makes someone unstoppable. Not intensity, not motivation, but daily correction. Closing line. Honesty is the highest form of self-care. Habit 6. Practice voluntary discomfort. This habit separates Stoic self-care from everything modern culture calls self-love. Because most people only care for themselves when it feels good. Stoics trained themselves when it didn't. Voluntary discomfort means choosing small, controlled difficulty on your own terms, so you're not destroyed by hardship when it arrives uninvited. This is not self-punishment. It is mental conditioning. Stoics believed comfort weakens the mind when it becomes constant. Not because comfort is evil, but because dependence on comfort makes you fragile. Modern life removes friction from everything. Instant food, instant entertainment, instant relief from boredom, hunger, discomfort, silence. And as friction disappears, resilience goes with it. Stoics noticed this centuries ago. Seneca deliberately slept on hard surfaces, wore simple clothing, ate plain food, not because he hated pleasure, but because he wanted to remind himself, I can endure less and still be whole. That knowledge is power. When you voluntarily face discomfort, you send your nervous system a new message. I am capable. And capability builds confidence faster than motivation ever will. Think about what this does psychologically. If you can tolerate cold, hunger, silence, effort, then delays, rejection, criticism, and uncertainty lose their power over you. You stop panicking at inconvenience. You stop collapsing at difficulty because you've trained yourself not to fear discomfort. This is Stoic self-care in its rawest form, not indulgence, not avoidance. Preparation. What voluntary discomfort is and isn't, let's be clear. This is not about harming your body, not about extremes, not about proving toughness. Stoics valued moderation. The goal is small discomfort, practiced consistently, enough to stretch you, not break you. Examples of safe Stoic discomfort: taking a cold or cool shower for 30-60 seconds, walking instead of driving when possible, skipping one meal occasionally, mindfully, sitting quietly for 10 minutes without your phone saying no when you want approval, having a difficult but honest conversation. Each of these does one thing: it reminds you that discomfort is survivable, and what is survivable is no longer terrifying. Why this builds self-respect. Self-respect grows when you keep promises to yourself, especially uncomfortable ones. Every time you choose voluntary discomfort, you reinforce this identity. I don't need ideal conditions to function. That identity is unshakable. People who rely on comfort need life to cooperate. People trained in discomfort carry their strength with them. Stoics didn't wait for courage to appear. They trained it daily, and this habit has a compounding effect. What once felt hard becomes neutral. What once felt impossible becomes manageable, and suddenly, life feels less threatening. Not because it got easier, but because you got stronger. Practical Stoic practice. Choose one small discomfort per day for the next week. Just one. Decide it in advance, not in the moment. And when resistance appears, don't negotiate. Remind yourself, this is training. Afterward, notice something subtle. Not pride, not excitement, but quiet confidence. That confidence doesn't shout, it settles. And once settled, it changes how you walk into every situation. Because the Stoic understands this truth. Comfort never made anyone resilient. Difficulty, chosen wisely, does. That is self-care with backbone, not softness, not cruelty. Strength. Closing line. Comfort never made anyone unstoppable. Habit 7. Guard your time like a treasure. This is the final habit, and in many ways, the most revealing one. Because how you protect your time shows how much you truly respect yourself. Most people say they value their life, but their calendar tells a different story. They give time to people who drain them. They say yes out of guilt. They stay busy, but not intentional. Stoicism treats time differently. Time is not a resource to be spent casually. It is life itself, unfolding moment by moment. And once wasted, it cannot be recovered. This is why Stoics were ruthless about how they used it. Not frantic, not busy, deliberate. Here's the modern trap. People confuse being available with being kind. They confuse productivity with purpose. They confuse full schedules with meaningful lives. Stoicism cuts through all of that. It asks one sharp question: is this worthy of my time? Because every unnecessary yes is a silent no to something that matters more. Your health, your character, your growth, your peace. When you give time away carelessly, you don't just lose hours, you lose direction. Stoic self-care means reclaiming authorship over your days. Not aggressively, not selfishly, but consciously. Why this habit changes everything. Your time shapes your identity. What you repeatedly give attention to becomes your life. If your time is scattered, your mind becomes scattered. If your time is guarded, your life becomes focused. Stoics understood that discipline is not about doing more, it's about doing less, but better. They didn't ask, how can I fit everything in? They asked, what deserves to remain? That shift is powerful, because once you respect your time, others start respecting it too. And if they don't, that tells you something important. The Stoic practice. Time audit. Here's a simple but confronting exercise. For the next 7 days, track 3 things: where your time goes, who receives your energy, how you feel afterward. No judgment, just observation. At the end of the week, ask yourself, what activities give me clarity and strength? What activities leave me drained or distracted? Then make one change, not 10. 1. Remove or reduce what drains you. Protect what strengthens you. This is not about cutting people off dramatically. It's about placing limits where limits are needed. The art of saying no. Stoically, Stoics didn't over-explain. They didn't justify their boundaries. They understood this. You don't owe the world exhaustion. A Stoic no is calm and complete. Examples. I'm not able to commit to that. That doesn't align with my priorities right now. I need to protect my time. No apology, no story, just truth. At first, this feels uncomfortable because people who benefited from your availability will resist your boundaries. Stoics accepted this. They knew that discomfort is the price of integrity. And over time, something shifts. Your days feel quieter, but fuller. Your mind feels clearer, but stronger. Your life feels intentional, not rushed, not crowded, aligned. Why this is self-love? Loving yourself stoically means treating your time as sacred. It means understanding that you are finite and choosing accordingly. You stop living reactively. You stop letting others set your pace. You stop filling your life with noise to avoid stillness. And when you do this consistently, something remarkable happens. You become hard to overwhelm, because overwhelm requires access, and you've learned how to close the gate. This is the final layer of Stoic self-care. Not indulgence, not isolation, sovereignty. You decide what enters your life and what doesn't. That decision alone makes you unstoppable. Closing line. What you tolerate defines your life. Self-care is self-respect. Let's slow down for a moment. What you've just learned is not a list of comforts. It's a code of conduct. Stoic self-care was never about feeling good all the time. It was about becoming someone who can stand steady no matter what life brings. You learn to live by virtue, not mood. To focus on what you control. To pause before reacting. To prepare for difficulty instead of fearing it. To tell yourself the truth. To choose discipline over comfort. And to guard your time like the life it is. None of this is flashy. None of it is easy. But it works. Because self-love, in the Stoic sense, is not indulgence. It's respect in action. So don't try to change everything at once. Choose one habit. Practice it today. Then prove it again tomorrow. If this message resonated, leave a comment with this line: I respect myself. Like the video. Share it with someone who needs strength, not motivation, and subscribe for more Stoic philosophy on building an unbreakable life. Remember, life doesn't become easier. You become stronger,